better tools to achieve that target holy grail of amblyopia. And one tool I've used in my practice, but I think really is indispensable, is the iTrace. It's the only barometer that does forward ray tracing. In other words, it shines 256 points into the eye and says, okay, how does it land on the eye, the quality of the image, but also where does it land? And so it gives us information on higher order aberration, contrast sensitivity, it tells us more scatter plot of opacity, it gives us a refraction, and because it has a topographer built in, it can separate and give us the contribution of the cornea and internal optics. So for me, when I'm even planning any kind of cataract surgery, this is an indispensable tool. But what's really cool about it for actually toric IOLs and alignment is it has a couple different features. Number one, it has wavefront case, which I think is really important, we'll talk about. It also has ability to have some help with marking and orientation intraoperatively. But to me, which is the holy grail for me, because I'm not as good as you all out there on the panel. And so sometimes I have some misses, and you get that surprised patient who's not happy. It helps you a great deal of understanding how to manage these patients if you're not happy post-operatively, or if they're not happy post-op. So we all get frustrated. I know I do. When you have your IOL master, your lens star saying one thing, you got your topographer saying something else, you got your auto refraction, you got your manifest refraction, you're like, what the heck do I do now? And then what's nice about the iTrace is that it has wavefront keratometry. So it's not just taking individual points, it's taking the whole wavefront of the 4mm central cornea, and using Zernike mathematical formulas, it can actually give you, I think, a true understanding of the case of the eye. And so if you hear an example of the same patient with a Singh case or with a diopter off of your wavefront case, and that can make a big issue when you're trying to plan and really target your IOL power. And what's also nice, Dr. Osher was instrumental in this using the Osher ring. So if you don't have an Aura, you don't have a Callisto or a Holos or a Varian, which are great tools, you have an ability at least to mark and give yourself the access for your IOL based upon limbal marking. So we can take that with you to the OR and help identify those limbal markings to align your IOL correctly. So it's a nice little tool that I think has been useful. But to me, what I love, and I think it's just kind of saved me in some cases, and I'm going to share with you a few cases, is what happens if you have that patient in the room and is pissed off at you, and you're like, oh man, what do I do? I don't want to dilate the patient, have to sit there and find out where the IOL is. I can actually do a 30-second scan, find out without dilating the patient, am I on axis, how is the power, and what do I have to do next? So here's an example of a patient where we're pretty much on the axis is perfect. There's your IOL, there's a target, and you're pretty much on the same axis, you're perfect. But the problem is you were off on your power. So it tells you, don't rotate this. This is someone who may need an LRI or some type of enhancement. Here's another patient where you have about an 8-degree rotation issue. But even if you rotate, it's telling you, you're only going to get about a quarter diopter of help. So this is another patient where you're off with your power. So this is not a patient where you go back and rotate. This may be somebody you do an LRI or some type of refractive enhancement. So it's important for those issues of when you're planning what to do. Here's an example of a patient where we are off with our alignment. So the toric axis here is about 25 degrees away from what the target should be. You should be at 85 and you're way off. So it's telling you, if you rotate this 25 degrees, you will get 3.72 diopters of cylinder power correction. And it tells you your predicted post-op rotational refraction. So you can go into a patient's room and say, look, Mrs. Smith, I'm really sorry, I know you're not happy, but I'm gonna do this, this, and this. I know for sure, we're gonna be on target and be very happy again. So it really helps with that insecurity when you go into that patient's room. Here's another example of a patient where you're about 14 degrees off. But this is a patient who may be happy. If you look at the refraction, the pre-op or the Tracey refraction is actually not too bad. This is a patient who may be 20, 25 in your office. So if they're happy, you kind of leave it alone. But if they're not happy, at least you know if you rotate 14 degrees, it'll be about 1.3 diopters of effect, and you'll probably have a good post-op refraction as down below. So you kind of have a better understanding, should I or can I help this patient if they're not happy? Here's another example, just a couple more, that also shows a situation where here's a patient where you have a 17-degree rotational issue, but you're also off about a diopter in your sill, and you're actually more powerful in your lens than you are in your cornea. So if you rotate that, it's going to give you about a diopter of change. But if you look at the post-op refraction, you're still going to leave yourself about a diopter still left over. So this is a patient you have to tell them, I can rotate that lens, but I'm still going to be off and still have a residual amount of astigmatism. So you can plan accordingly. So here's an example of a patient where we actually did do a rotation. So up on the left, it says, you need to rotate this, pretty far off obviously, 51 degrees, and you'll get about a diopter of correction. And you'll get basically plano. So what happens? Rotate the lens. And post-op on the right, you see a post-op Tracey scan, showing you that you basically nailed it. So this is a great way to verify that the Tracey was on, and by listening to the machine, you actually got the patient pretty much plano. So for me, I've used it really for a lot of things. I think as a pre-op planner, it tells you where your angle, alpha, angle, kappa is. It gives you understanding of your corneal hyoid aberration. So if for some reason you have a lot of HOA on the cornea, I'm not going to implant a multifocal. I'll put a crystal lens or a monofocal lens in there. So it gives you a lot more ability to really plan accordingly. So it's a great machine. And by the way, I have no financial interest in the iTrace. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And,